My distinguished colleagues on the dais, Dr. V.K. Garg, Mr. U. Kumar, Mr. Rakesh Vej, Lai McHugh, and Dr. Anil Garg, all distinguished participants to this 9th World PetroCoal Congress, which has, as has been explained, you see, is actually virtually all the fossil fuels getting together, gas also being a part of it, and God knows which other fuel is going to come. If anything, the 3 days of deliberation of this conference has shown that fossil fuels are going to be extremely necessary in the coming decades also. We've also only explored the possibility of going into solar and wind energy. But as far as liquid fuels, automotive fuels, and also substances, solid substances are concerned, Mother Earth, in the shape of fossil fuels, continues to give us a wealth of chemicals and the basic elements of carbon and hydrogen, which are extremely versatile, and it is ignorance or a possibility of technology which has prevented their use and conversion into useful chemicals or elements. It is for future generations to take the torch forward. And that is why in this Congress, we give the highest importance to participation of the younger generation, the torch bearers for tomorrow. Our generation can only tell you, as elders, where the direction of development lies. It is essentially for the younger people, younger executives in the companies who are joining 5, 10 years experience to move forward aggressively, not only save this planet, but also create conditions for better and more equitable living for all its inhabitants. The danger of energy transitions and new technologies coming in is that is always a situation of catching up. The developing world was unfortunately not a part of the Industrial Revolution, which was motivated and inspired, I think, to an industrial scale by the developed countries, or so to say, the capitalist or imperialist countries, not only imperialism in terms of territory, but also in terms of economic imperialism. Imperialism in any form is a form of domination. And the future imperialism could well be the imperialism of transitions. In these transitions, those who are catching up could well be left behind again. So it is for developing countries and younger generations to help these communities leapfrog into new technologies. Why I say leapfrog? Because there is no time for that transition. India could not connect all its villages with telephone lines. They moved to cell phones straight away. India today is one of the highest density of cell phones across the world. Similarly, for new technologies, we should be practitioners of new technology and not mere users and consumers. Unfortunately, that has happened in the world of telecom. You have the talent. The younger generation has the advantage across the world, I would say, of moving into these new technologies, not forgetting the basic elements of chemistry and technology. Carbon and hydrogen being two of the most basic elements of nature. And what are hydrocarbons? They contain these two elements. It's the way you arrange the jigsaw of compounds and the way you can play around with them with technology to use them to your advantage. Nothing is waste. The waste is a lack of ideas in our mind, in our inherited technology. Many years ago, while I was in the Department of Atomic Energy, I had occasion to meet a very senior scientist who was working on cold fusion. And while he was briefing me on the industrial, so-called the nuclear waste, he made a very telling remark which has lived with me for almost 3 decades. And that is, he said, there's no such thing as nuclear waste. It is only our ignorance or lack of knowledge about those elements and the technology to put them to proper use. The worst thing you can do to anything is to say it is waste and put it away in somebody else's backyard. And that is what the developed world has been doing. Any waste that we find in our house, we try and throw it into the neighbor's front gate. The old methods of ensuring that nothing goes waste, which at least in my generation, our grandparents used to teach us, that you have to find use of that thing. And yesterday we had that brilliant lecture by Dr. Sonde, who at this age has taken upon himself the challenge that he shall bring about a revolution in Indian coal and convert it into hydrogen or a fuel cell. That's the kind of motivation that we need from a younger generation as a challenge. Because unless you have that fire in your belly, you're not going to be able to run fast. That fire in the belly only makes champions out of human beings, out of nations, and out of civilizations. Otherwise, you can continue to be fellow travelers or stragglers, not even travelers. Having been power secretary in the country and having been somebody associated with rural electrification from the days when I was a joint secretary, it amuses me at times when we say that we've electrified every home. Thousands of new homes are coming up every day. And mostly there are poor homes. People who migrate to areas of employment and start living on the streets or open spaces. Each is a dwelling unit. So this race against electrification, against removal of poverty, is an ongoing race. And we have to bring about a society and a civilization in which we empower citizens, reskill them, reinvent the old wheel, and bring about new technologies to take us into the future. If anything, these 9 congresses that I have attended, it's taking us in that direction. The first few congresses were devoted almost to a feeling of self-defense. No, coal and oil matter. Coal and oil matter. We are not that bad. We are not bad. Then it said, we are not that bad. Then it comes to a point, yes, we are going to continue to dominate, but yes, we have to clean up the act. We have destroyed most of our natural resources. We've destroyed water bodies. We've destroyed forests. We've removed the cover of land in the greed for money or for in search of employment or dwelling units. And in the process, you see, we have removed the vegetation and the good that nature gave us, much in the nature of my skull, which has lost its hair and has greater vulnerability to the forces of nature, like be it rain, sun, or cold, or hailstorm. So similarly, I think the earth has to be protected. I can put on a hat, but the earth's surface cannot have a hat on top. So it is for this generation to ensure and protest when you need something. When you need something for the future. And mind you, it's a very cruel world. Nobody gives you your right as a matter of right. There's a saying in the country, part of the country that I served, that रोए बिना तो बच्चे को माँ दूध भी नहीं देती. You have to demand it. You have to demand that change. You have to demand that place in society, that civilization. But you have to make the effort yourself. So that is for the younger generation, since most of you are left. We will shortly ourselves become fossils, if not fossil fuels, in a few years' time. And I conclude my remarks, of course, asking you to read every word of this declaration. It has great meaning. But more than that, this morning I got a good message on my WhatsApp from a person of your generation who just finished out of college, and I was so delighted to receive that message. The message asked, some professor asked his students in a Western university, which is the richest place on earth? Somebody said a financial street, somebody said a gold mint, somebody said a jeweler's street, somebody said a millionaire settlement somewhere in Los Angeles. He said, no. The richest place in the area where you live is the graveyard. Because there lies buried most intellect and thoughts, perhaps which were not translated into action and left lying there. So the moral of the story is, make this empty, distribute the ideas, implement the ideas, don't keep them here. It's your future and your intellect which is going to decide your future. Thank you very much.